Welcome to Enlightenment Unknown Life of a Spiritual Nomad. Join Reiki Master and quantum healing expert Wes Coons as he guides listeners through the depths of self discovery and spiritual enlightenment to uncover the version of you we haven't met yet.
Welcome to Enlightenment Unknown Life of a Spiritual Nomad. My name is Wes Coons, and welcome back to the show. I haven't done a recording, I feel like, just by myself in forever. It could have been 2 weeks ago, but it feels like forever to me. And the one thing that we talk about on the show is how life happens for you and not to you, right? I've got this little German Shepherd dog. Well, she's 75 pounds. She's a beast. Lady Abigail Rose. She's the prettiest girl, but she is in direct contrast to the German Shepherd Kennedy that passed away 2 years ago. If you listen to the show from the beginning, Kennedy, she protected me. She saved me. She did what a dog does, and she would get aggressive, right? She would be the guard dog. And in my mind, that's what I was expecting with Abigail. But she's different. Abby's super sweet. Now, if another dog barks at her, it's going to be game on. I promise you that. But she's just sweet and gentle. One of the things that really has bothered me with her and has been a core trauma wound that I haven't healed yet is if somebody comes over or I take her to church like I did last weekend, she's laying there leaning against a total stranger against his leg. And in my mind, I was perceiving it as, man, she's a traitor. She's not choosing me. And anytime anybody else comes around, she chooses them. It's been really, really difficult for me. I mean, I have honestly considered giving her to Lakota because she just adores Lakota. If you're around Lakota and there's an animal there, that animal is going to be in her lap. She just has that gift, right? I went down to Florida this last week to see my daughter, Sydney. I got to see her in her wedding dress. God, she's so pretty. I just cried. And Abraham, her fiance, is an amazing young man. But the point is, we went down and stayed at a campground, and we've never done that before. When we sleep at night, she'll systematically get in the bed with me. But bottom line is, I noticed when we were in the campground, she slept next to me, pressed against me the whole night. I've never seen her in protection mode, and I thought that was interesting. I didn't know how to process it. So fast forward, actually, I watched this movie Dog today. The guy's name is Channing Tatum, something like that. I'm sure all the ladies know who he is, but an Army Ranger who's discharged from the Army, has a brain injury, and he's trying to get a job as a civilian contractor for some kind of military group that goes overseas and does protection work and gets paid $200,000-300,000 a year. He can't get the Army to lie for him and say that his medical records are good so he can take this job. So he's been given a task. The task is take this dog that has been in combat for 7 years across country to this funeral. The funeral is the dog's handler had died. Well, they don't tell you how the handler died. And the dog is really aggressive, really violent, and has to have this muzzle on. And he had actually previously worked with the dog, but the dog is just really, really broken. So he takes the challenge because if he completes it, they're going to lie and he can take the job, right? So he's going across country driving because the dog won't fly. And they're getting in all this trouble and stuff. But the point is, I started to really pay attention. And I've said this before on the show, when we get out of the military, we're such an inconvenience to the government. We're an inconvenience to people because the reality is, at least for me, I was so fucking broken. I was just so disconnected, so lost, so broken. I didn't know how to heal that part of me, and I didn't know what to do. As I'm watching myself on TV going through this process, one of the things that happens is Channing meets another guy that he was in the army with, and he knew the dog. So the dog runs up to him, he pets the dog, and Channing's a little frustrated because the dog won't let him play with her that way, right? Much like I was frustrated with Abby for not being Kennedy. And as these two are talking, you can see the dynamics between here's Channing, this unhealed warrior that is desperately trying to get back into combat. And the reason he wants to get back into combat is the chaos, the simplicity of it, the connection to death seems so simple. It's not complicated. And there's a draw to get there. But the funny thing is when you get there, all you want to do is get home, right? You know, it's this dance of chaos and confusion and yearning to feel normal, this yearning to feel important, this yearning to feel powerful, to be this warrior that we are. I'm watching this guy who sounds like a version of me that I'm still trying to heal, talking to a well-heeled warrior, and the conversations are polar opposite. As we're in the military, hey, if you die, you die. Who cares? You're going to go in that house, you're going to go in that building, you're going to take that hill, and if you die, it's okay. You know, we had to be in that mindset. And then the well-heeled warrior's like, well, maybe you don't die. Maybe you do something different. I pause the movie and get my notebook out and just start writing and letting this pain out of me that I've been holding on to, even though it's painful, the familiar feeling of it is me. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but it's kind of like putting my weapon down makes me weak. And that's taken me a while to process. That was my identity. Channing's identity is I'm this warrior, I'm this Army Ranger. And we all know they're just a support group for the United States Marine Corps, just saying. But you see this internal battle, and there's also an internal battle with the dog. So as he's peeling back the layers and receiving a different perspective, I was talking to Kelsey recently about Abigail, and she said, Wes, maybe that person at church that she laid next to needed her love in that moment. And my response was, fuck that. She's my dog. I expect loyalty from my animal, and I want her to sit with me because that core wound of Wesley is abandoned by everybody that loves him is still raw. I haven't healed that completely because the reality is it's not true. The reality is people come into our life for a season, but it was triggering me, and I was present enough with myself to see I'm being triggered. I need to heal this. How do I heal this? So last week I asked God, I said, heal this in me. Take this from me. And when I say that, I clearly hear in my mind, I will. So I didn't question it. I didn't say, well, how are you going to heal it? What are you going to do? Who are you going to send? Blah, blah, blah. I ask and I receive. And the other part of that is I intentionally made sure my heart, my mind, my eyes, and my consciousness is open to receive that blessing. So when something shows up in front of me, I'm going to be present and pay attention to it. And that's what this movie was. That's what the conversation with Kelsey connected me to. That's what me wanting to do something different in my life allowed me to see. So the whole premise of this, he takes the dog to this funeral, then back to the army, and the army is going to kill the dog because the dog is an inconvenience, just like I am. That's what I believed. So as they're going on this journey with this violent dog, systematically, the dog starts to heal. And Channing is meeting people that are connecting with the animal in a way that he can't. And he's confused by this. Just like I was confused with Abigail. I'm expecting Abigail to protect me the way Kennedy did. But she's not Kennedy. When I picked up Abby from the breeder, 2 minutes later, I heard Kennedy clearly say to me, I will not rejoin you with this dog. I'm not going to take my soul into this dog. I'm going home. And I just remembered being, oh God, I just cried. I cried so hard I had to pull over. And I missed my friend, right? So I know Kennedy gave her some downloads, gave her some marching orders, but what she did is she allowed Abby to be Abby. Lakota says dog spelled backwards is God. God gives us these gifts to filter our stuff, to support us and to love us. And Kennedy knew enough that it was her turn to go home. She had fulfilled her contract. She had fulfilled her obligation. She made sure I was handed off to the dog that she brought into my life, the dog that God sent to me. And I just didn't understand it, but they did. So one of the things the handler had was an I love you book. And there was videos of the dog doing its job in combat and attacking the bad guys, doing what that dog does. And it was interesting because, come to find out, the only thing that calms the dog down was watching these videos. And I started looking at that reflection of myself. I like to watch these really graphic war movies. Even though it destroys me inside, there's this sense of familiarity, this sense of safety, this simplicity of what that is. But you don't have the dynamics of going to work, working with people, social media, dating. You don't have that. You are doing a job. It's simple. The perception is if he goes back into that combat zone, everything's going to feel normal. But the reality is when we're there, we want to be here. It's insanity. And that's what we do, back and forth, back and forth. I was looking at that. I said, isn't it interesting that the dog is comfortable being in a place that it's uncomfortable, even though it's destroying the dog? So at one point in the show, Channing says, thank you for saving my life. And I just started to look at that. Kennedy saved my life. In that haunted house, she would lay on my chest to protect me. She would growl at demons when she would see them. She was the protector dog. As Channing's going through his journey, this dog starts to heal faster than him. So there's this softness to this aggressive dog that's breaking down his walls. And I started to look at it. I said, Kennedy did her job, and that box is checked. Abby came to bring this softness to the table to soften my heart, to help me step into the next evolution of Wes. So when I reflected back to the camping trip, Abby was pressed against me because there's these raccoons running around the tent making creepy noises. I mean, it was a little crazy. She's never experienced that, so she went into that protector mode. And then the next night, not so much. And for a minute, I thought, look, there she is. She's a freaking traitor. But the reality is she's not. I was safe. So she was giving me my space. She was relaxing and going to sleep. Kennedy didn't have that. not for a good bit of time. But she did eventually start to pull back from me once I was safe. So watching the dynamics of this guy talking through the behaviors of the dog, the craziness of meeting this warrior that is friends with the dog, and he's petting the dog and playing with the dog. And he's like, "Oh yeah, Lulu loves to give hugs." And Shannon's like, What are you talking about? I can't even hardly feed this dog." And the guy said something like, "Well, you don't know how to love her." And I thought to myself, I don't know how to love me. Abby is here to teach me how to love me. Because when it's her and I, she focuses on me the entire time. And when we're out in public or we're somewhere else, she knows that I'm safe enough that she can go give her love to somebody else. Right? I mean, as I'm going through this process and looking at, I'm not an inconvenience. I just didn't understand myself. I'm not broken. I'm healing. I don't need to watch. I don't need to watch those movies to try to feel normal, to actually destroy myself, because the destruction was my normal. And then I was thinking, as I was writing, I'm like, there's my relationships I've had in the past. No wonder I attracted women that threw me in the trash easily. Trinae would say all the time, "You like the chaos of it." And I remember saying, "No, I don't. I don't like the chaos of it. What are you talking about? I want peace." But the reality is, the chaos was the combat. It was familiar. Being destroyed was familiar. Being broken was familiar. That is what safety felt like, even though it was painful. So I kept putting myself back in this position and not understanding it. I saw this meme yesterday. It said, "Growth means you versus you, and one of you has to die." Growth means you versus you, and one of you has to die. Which version of that is going to die? The version of you being healed, the version of you being happy, the version of you loving yourself, the version of me meeting all these amazing, beautiful people, going on these adventures, doing this healing work, growing my business, living my life, or the version of me that is broken, that hides from things, that doesn't want to participate, that gets into his head. Which is it? Who's going to die? And I choose that the old version is going to die. In the haunted house, Lakota said, "We can't fix it until you go through that rebirthing ceremony," where I dug my own grave, laid in there for 18 hours. And at the 18-hour mark, the demon that was placed inside me as a child left. The old version of me died on that mountain, in that ground, and the demon left because there was nothing there. Why is it going to stay in a corpse? It left because that person was willing to do something different, do something radical, like choosing myself to go through that process. At one point in the movie, a thunderstorm comes in and the dog is clearly struggling from the lightning and the thunder, right? So they hide out in this garage because his truck broke down. And he's looking at the dog that finally starts to calm down. And the reality is, in 3 days, the dog's dead. He's going to complete his mission. He's going to take the dog to the funeral, take it back. They're going to kill the dog. He's going to move on. He's going to go overseas. He's going to be in combat. And he's going to choose that old version. And he looked at the dog and says, "You don't have any clue, do you?" And I was thinking about that. I'm like, we're the only species that lives in the past. That dog lives in the present. The dog doesn't know in 3 days it's going to be euthanized. It doesn't know that the army in this scenario is not going to look and see where the dog is healing and could go to a new home. They're going to check their little boxes because they don't have time to worry about people's feelings and emotions because it's the military, right? I mean, come on, it's the military. I'm not mad at you. It's just what it is. And at the same time, the dog is finding peace being present with itself where I'm not present a lot of times. Channing is in the past, thinking about the future and skipping the present. How many times do we do that every single day? I read this thing the other day. It says people talk about their entire life. We're going to go to heaven and have this beautiful experience. And the guy said, why don't you create heaven on earth? And that just kind of just stuck in my head. I'm like, wow. Imagine that. Imagine having heaven on earth. Well, Wes, I was raped. Okay, I've checked that box. Wes, I had an addiction problem. Yep, check that box. I hated myself. Yep, check that box. I'm like, and if I can heal, you can heal. Families that heal together stay together. You are one vibrational shift away from being the person that you're talking about wanting to be. There's this theory that there's thousands of versions of ourselves happening all at the same time. And the second you choose, you shift into that reality. And the reason you don't see it is because the shift is so subtle. You're not making this huge jump. You're not going from 400 pounds today to 125 pounds tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. So you don't really notice the reality shift. You don't notice the different shifts around you, but you do notice when people are in your life and that evolution of that friendship or relationship is ending because you're growing. There was a reality shift. There was a different universe you stepped into, and that person's not there and they fade away. One of the things he finds out about in the movie is the handler actually killed himself. I think he got drunk or something and drove into a tree. And this guy that's helping Channing understand how the dog works was friends with this man. And he said, dude, he talked about driving off a cliff all the time. And Channing says, well, we talk about death. It's what we do. And he's not wrong. That's what we do. In the military is our death is no big deal. Death is no big deal. It has to be no big deal. Look at the job that we do, right? So if you really look at it, if you really peel it back, the handler drove into the tree to kill himself, to save the dog and to save the warrior. Because if he didn't die, Channing would not have met the dog and they wouldn't have been on this journey. And if the dog didn't have issues flying, they would have gotten on a plane, got there, came back, and the dog would have been dead and he would have gone off and he would have died. He may not have died in combat, but he would have died. He would have chosen the lesser version of himself that he understood and gone overseas, lied about his stuff to stay in the familiar feeling of chaos, destruction, pain, and suffering. We're not here to fucking suffer. We're here to struggle. If life was easy, we would never grow. I was reading this article and it said, gifted people, enlightened people, healers are born into very dysfunctional families and go through astronomical pain in their life. And the guy said the reason that is if I was born into a home that was perfectly loving, everything was great, nothing externally happened outside of the house, I went to college, I found the woman of my dreams, we had this beautiful life. I got to be honest, I don't even know what the fuck that looks like. However, if I did, there would be nothing pressuring me in my life to grow, to become the person that I actually chose to be when I was in heaven signing my contract to come down here. There's nothing pushing me to grow. Why should I? I'm rich, good looking, got a great family, I got all these things. What do I want to change? I'm not going to change that. So we come here and go through these experiences. So it creates this foundation of trauma and problems and pain. So when that person steps into my office, I could see what they've been through within 6 seconds of them sitting at my desk. How am I going to heal that person if I can't empathize with them, if I can't see what's going on? So it's creating this beautiful experience of a life. Think about going to college, we'll call it the college of pain and suffering. And I've checked that box and graduated. Now I'm going to use the tools that I learned through those experiences to continuously heal myself and become something, become a newer, better, bigger version of myself. I am not the same guy I was 4 hours ago by a long shot today. So in the movie, he's taken the dog back. He pulls up to the army base and his ID is expired, right? And he'd gone on the base a couple times. They gave him a hard time about the ID. Well, that ID was his identity. That warrior that he had was attached to that card. And so when he goes back to the base this time, the guy says, your card's expired. And he says, yeah, keep it. Because he checked that box of, I'm not going to go back. And then they tried to take the dog. And I guess I'm going to, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm going to spoil it for you a little bit. But they came up and they were treating the dog the way the piece of paper said the dog behaved. Well, the dog had grown, the dog had healed, right? You know how many people still come to me and treat me like the guy that was here 6 years ago? Well, you know how Wes is. Yeah, you don't want to piss Wes off, boy. I tell you what, you don't want to cross that bridge. Yeah, you don't want to tell him something he doesn't want to hear. And I'm thinking to myself, have you seen me? I'm not that person anymore. But that's not my problem. I'm not going to sit there and focus on that. I'm going to focus on me. And the nice thing is when I hear that, instead of being frustrated, I'm like, gosh, I've grown so much. I'm so proud of myself. The old version of me, that would have just bothered me so much because I was always worried about what everybody else thought. It's not that I don't care. It just doesn't affect me. And maybe I don't care. I don't go down and talk to the attorney and ask him how to bake a cake anymore. I don't get life advice about a marriage from somebody who cheats on their wife. See what I'm saying? When somebody who is unhealed is criticizing me or trying to give me advice on what they think I should do with my life, I just smile and keep going. So the pivotal point of the movie is he gave the dog back. He's looking in his rearview mirror. They're being aggressive towards the dog. He has a choice. Somebody has to die. You're going to have to watch the movie to see who died. So Abby didn't come to me to be this beast of a dog, this warrior dog. She came to show me that an open heart can change the world. And since I've been looking at her like that, she's been by my side more. Isn't that interesting? When I started to heal the part of me that I knew needed to be healed, I actually received what I was wanting the whole time. The answer is within us. The freedom is within forgiveness. The freedom is in being present in your life and looking at what's going on and asking God to take it from you. So when I asked him, take this from me, I heard, I will. And I didn't sit there and micromanage it. I'm like, all right, cool. I just moved down the street like it was nothing. I call that getting in neutral position. I'm in neutral gear. You know, the stick shift, you're in neutral. You're not going anywhere. You're in the car and you're at the whim of whatever. You're not going to shift and change things If, for example, you're in a relationship that's just driving you nuts, when you get in that position of, I have no expectations from you, I have no expectations from me, I'm speaking my truth, things change. When you choose you, it's best for all involved. Even if the other person doesn't like it or there's pain that comes with that decision. So if the decision is to leave a relationship, leave a job, leave a friendship, give up doing drugs, give up getting high, give up drinking, when you make that decision to choose you, it gives the other party an opportunity to actually fulfill what they're here to fulfill. So you're moving on, doing what you need to do. They have an opportunity to move on where they're going, and it's none of your damn business if they do it or they don't do it. Because you're choosing you, and I sure hope they follow the path that they're supposed to be on. I do. I do. I would love, more than anything, to have this beautiful relationship with my ex-wife. I got to see my daughter in her wedding dress this weekend, and I wished my ex-wife was there so I could hug her and we could cry together. But I'm not going to get that. So I'm going to continue to choose me. I'm going to continue to choose my daughter. I'm going to send love to my ex-wife. At the end of the day, I don't want to move in with her and we're not going to hang out and be best friends, but she's the mother of my children. She's a human being and I want her to be happy. I want her to be loved. I want her to be this beautiful soul that she is. I have no ill will towards her. And I'm forgiving the pieces of me that still have anger towards myself from that relationship. I hope I explained this clearly. I hope you're able to follow what I was sharing. And I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for listening to the show. If you like what I do, feel free to reach out. Click the 5-star review for me. It helps me do God's work. It helps me get the word out more. We're in over 100 countries, and which I got to be honest, I find a little confusing, but thank you. I think about you on an ongoing basis. I send prayers to you. I send prayers to your family, and I wholeheartedly hope that you've received something from this and it changes your life, because when I heard God tell me, you are to bring people to my army, he wasn't talking about a physical war. He wasn't talking about going to the brick box down the street called a church. He was talking about you finding the God inside of you, because if he's our Father, we have a little piece of him, maybe a little G, not a big G. But there's something beautiful inside of you. And when we find that, when we look at that, and we peel that back and peel it back and peel it back, life changes quickly. It's quite beautiful, actually. And I want that for you. So thank you for listening to the show. I'm working on the Sunday Preach. That's going to be my every 2 weeks program I'm adding to the show, talking about God. I'm having some technology issues, and hey, technology is not my friend. I'll see you next time. Namaste.
You've been listening to Enlightenment Unknown with Wes Coons, your guide on the quest for self-discovery and the version of you we haven't met yet.